Hello, Glenn Shepherd from Skywire Australia. I'm one of the mobility solutions consultants within our business. I'm here today at HP Aruba's offices in Melbourne, bringing together two of our leading vendors in HP Aruba and Zebra Technologies. And today we're going to be discussing some of the solutions and product sets that both HP and Aruba and Zebra have, which is going to help our customers in the retail and supply chain and warehouse logistics spaces overcome some of the challenges that they have. So today I've got Bonnie Filer from HP Aruba Networks, who's flown all the way from the US for this meeting, and Ricardo Riati from, is that correct? Is that pronounced?
It's Riati. It's close enough.
My apologies. From Zebra Technologies, who can discuss some of the solutions that Zebra has. So just probably wanted to start off with Bonnie and just maybe describe your role at HP Aruba and why you're in Australia.
Sure. I'm Bonnie Filer. I've been with the what's now called Aruba User Experience Insights. We were an acquisition by Aruba about 5 years ago, so I'm part of the product team and handle go-to-market and introducing new technologies.
Sure. And what does the user experience solution look like for Aruba customers? What do they get out of that?
It really gives them an outside-in view of what the experience is like for their people using the network. So in the case of Zebra, you load what is either a hardened sensor or you load the software agent onto the Zebra device, and it allows a global view of what the performance is like instead of just looking at it from the network side.
Yep. So it's focused then at IT operations, looking at management of networks?
IT operations, but also the business, because we can trend the data and you can start to see things in a more wider scale.
Yep.
So you can plan from what's coming next, or what do I need to do, or if we've got a buy online and people are having to spin networks up in parking lots, and how do we plan for all of that? So it really benefits everybody.
Yep. And what's the relationship between Aruba and Zebra from your 30,000 foot view?
The partnership is I can't think of the name of the partnership.
Oh, a strategic alliance.
Strategic alliance,
yeah.
Yes. So they have we co-developed a lot of solutions together to make sure that it's addressing the industry, as needed. So it's not just a single product kind of solution. So.
Yep, and actually embedding code onto Zebra's devices that are coming out.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm Ricardo, I'm Senior Sales Engineer for Zebra Technologies. And exactly right. So what we've done is we've been able to do with partnership with Aruba is provide our wireless insights agent and get our APIs and all the information that we can collect from our devices and be able to send that information, that data, to Aruba. And Aruba has that information both from the network side, from the APs, the access points, as well as from the device side, and being able to show that and demonstrate it on a single dashboard to provide the real user experience.
Yep.
Because sometimes, and we say this all the time, is from the network point of view, everything looks great, but what the user has experienced is they've walked inside of a fridge, for example, and that experience is not captured sometimes. So providing that end user experience is very, very key to success.
It's interesting. So as a systems integrator, we're getting bombarded all the times with customers having dropouts. My performance in one area of a warehouse or a retail store isn't working correctly. And getting the right tools out there in someone's hands to be able to diagnose those issues and work out the remediation steps, that's a challenge. So I think that having that relationship and that tight integration is really important from an integrator's perspective, but also from a customer's perspective, to take advantage of some of those tool sets.
Spot on. I think also the interoperability testing that Zebra and Aruba do in the background to make sure that you as the partner have confidence to say, when I put these two products together, they work well and has been tested in the past.
And the idea is to stop the finger pointing, and really narrow it down quickly to where the issue really sits.
Yep. I'm seeing more and more demand for more devices coming onto wired and wireless networks. It's causing more congestion. So things like robots, voice communications, security cameras, all these devices are now competing for that wireless LAN space. What are HP Aruba and Zebra doing to try and alleviate some of those challenges?
So Aruba has a full range of access points to address just about every industry need and IoT growth and how to plan for that. But what we do see is that there's a need to baseline before you make that change. And that's what they do with UXI. Whether it's on the Zebra device or it's within the sensor platform, people are trying to get a better picture of what is the performance. And because not all clients are 6E capable yet, right? So some of them, you may just assume it's a network issue, and it's really not. It's a device issue, or it's DHCP within the network, or DNS, or something else within that network causing the problems. So whereas we 90% of the access points being sold are 6E today, there's still, how do you explain it when you just bought the best thing and you're still having issues? And that's what UXI is doing to help with the...
Yeah, I guess it's baselining, isn't it? Just understanding the environment before going off and making wholesale change across the network. But with a lot of those competing technologies that are now out there needs to be a way forward, right? And I think that's where Zebra have got devices that are now capable of overcoming some of those challenges.
Yeah, spot on. So all of our devices, all of our next generation devices, I should say, are actually now coming out with Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E. And obviously we are trying to future-proof those devices as much as possible. We're also ensuring that our next generation devices do have faster processing speed, larger memory capability. So we're trying to overcome the issues of today, but also trying to forecast what's going to happen in the future. And I think, Bonnie, you're spot on when you say, we need to look at that entire ecosystem and understand all the different elements. And I think, again, through Wireless Insights and UXI, we can look at all that information and be able to piece together a picture to say, yes, the issue is because of the Wi-Fi infrastructure, or the issue is because of a DNS server or DHCP, etc. So yeah, there's lots of ways to tackle it, but yeah, having the tools and the capabilities is the first start.
We've been talking about Wi-Fi 6E a little bit. What does that mean for customers? Well, it's actually opening up a brand new spectrum where there's less interference. There's less interference, not more interference, less interference, but there's more channels and more bandwidth available for end users to enter into. And the great thing is that between HP and Aruba and Zebra, they've now got devices that can talk into that space and overcome some of those interference and congestion challenges that are presented. But when we look at a Wi-Fi 6E deployment, it's a different kettle of fish, right? We need to rethink about the way maybe an existing wireless network has been deployed. If we look at, we move to a higher bandwidth at 6 gigahertz, it's going to mean more access points straight away. It's going to mean that we need to try and understand where those access points are going to be used. Our warehouses are now changing where we're typically deploying these access points. So we're getting big open spaces now in warehouses where AMR solutions are being deployed. So rather than having wall-to-wall racking from one end of the warehouse to another, we're seeing a lot of those open spaces, and you can throw an access point to any one of those open spaces and get coverage everywhere. So having to put in now micro cells effectively to produce the coverage that we want to allow us to get those non-overlapping channels and allow for that congestion is really, really important. So when it comes to that network design, I think part of the consideration there is trying to understand the environment, trying to understand the devices that are going to be used in that environment, and trying to alleviate the congestion in that space using the 6E technology.
So even though everyone is moving to a 6E environment to try to improve the overall performance, it's hard to translate that to the end user. Yeah. That's actually the guy on the forklift who's driving too fast. They can't tell him to slow down, So he's still, that all has to work, which is where the user experience and where the relationship with Zebra really becomes strong, because no longer am I saying, it's the network, and maybe it is the network, but there's things you can't control, right? So, but you need to understand that and have visibility to it.
I think as well as that there needs to be a more holistic approach of deploying 6E solutions. What a lot of people don't think about is the switching side. So you might throw a few access points up that are now high-end access points with high throughput data connectivity, but if your network switching is not up to scratch and you're not, you're still running on very old network cables. You've got PoE switches that aren't providing enough power to these new access points. You're not going to get the performance benefit as well. So there needs to be a holistic look around not only a Wi-Fi deployment and what that means, but also rest of network deployment and factoring that into any refresh element.
That's right, Glenn. So from an end user perspective, they're out there with the Zebra device expecting faster speeds, greater performance, but they still have the same experience. So something that's down the line, like you mentioned, a PoE switch not providing enough power, simple things like that do need to be considered. So from an end user perspective, we really need to keep in mind from end to end, all the components within that solution are up to scratch and modernised.
We spoke about additional demands being placed on wireless networks. Voice communications is a big one that we're talking to our customers about. What are some of the solutions that Zebra has in that space to provide additional worker efficiencies?
Yeah, good point. So around voice communications, we've got a few different platforms. So we have our Workforce Connect portfolio, and within Workforce Connect, we have our voice client. So voice client is the ability to connect to a PABX on site or in the cloud, and be able to provide voice telephony phone calls. That's typically one-to-one or a small conference. We also have our Push-to-Talk Pro portfolio, which also allows for group communication, duress capability, instant messaging, multimedia messaging, etc. So that allows for our group, our team, to be able to collaborate together on a common problem or a common task. Within that as well, we also have a lot of location servicing. So again, in partnership with Aruba, we do have Wi-Fi based RTLS solutions where we can locate devices or personnel within a warehouse or a facility to be able to pinpoint their location. With our devices being an Android device, we also do support other applications that might be, for example, like a telehealth in healthcare and video conferencing. So all these extra demands and things we never thought about in the past are now becoming almost business as usual within these environments.
And what UXI brings to that partnership is the ability to measure each one of those, that SIP call, we can measure where did it break down, was it on the person making the call or the person receiving the call? Because quite often we hear the call dropped and nobody knows, did that guy go away or did the call drop? Who dropped it? So UXI is able to show exactly what that, each step of that call and where did it fall down. And from a locationing perspective, there's support for 802.11mc built into where we can see from a map where a roam came from, went to, and what the interferers were in the middle of that.
I guess I go back to wireless design as well, because typically a wireless design for a warehouse manufacturing site might have been for RF scanning only. Voice communications, you need to have a better quality of service, so a better signal, better signal to noise ratio. So reviewing your wireless network design as part of that process, I think, is pretty important as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess with that wireless insights and that UXI capability, able to do pre-analysis of the current infrastructure as well as post after you've deployed that infrastructure, and be able to effectively make a phone call, walk around the entire facility and see all that data in real time, look at those individual packets and understand if it failed, where it failed, how it failed, and then again, how do we rectify that fault?
And the impact's pretty big because people are paid by being productive. Yeah. And if the calls are dropping or if things start to get confused because a file didn't upload when it was supposed to, that impacts productivity, which hits the bottom line. Yeah. So it does have an impact.
One of the things that I'm talking to my customers about is cybersecurity, and a lot of customers have now concerns, especially with a lot of data breaches, and we've heard through the media over the last few months some major data breaches which have occurred here. And customers are wanting to know, what tools are in place that both HP, Aruba, and Zebra can provide to try and overcome some of the challenges. There are standards out there now that sort of help harden, if you like, networks and help harden device setups. So I just wanted to understand, I guess, some of the tools that both of your organisations might have to help IT and security managers, implement some of those changes.
Sure. Aruba has ClearPass, which you may have heard of, in that it will set the policy and make it easy for someone to associate to a network and automatically be put into a role, which has been huge from removing the complexity of onboarding a network. And then what UXI brings to that is what was the impact of that security policy you put in place? Because quite often you could have great security, but all of a sudden I can't use that application, or I can't get to that service that I used to be able to get to. So that's where we kind of work hand in hand on, in judging the impact or gauging the impact of a security policy.
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen of ClearPass as well is that, it's a profiling tool, so you can profile the device that's connecting into your network, whether it be a security camera or a printer or a user. And also then based on, if I'm a desktop PC running Windows 10 with a security patch of X, Y, and Z, if I'm not meeting some minimum standard, I can reject you or put you into a different pathway or restrict your access. So I think there's some of the great features that ClearPass can bring to customers, not only of customers running HP Aruba wireless, but really any wireless network. So it's really an overlay that you can throw on top to provide that extra layer of security and onboarding. Right? And then I guess at the device level, we're seeing new flavors of Android being released every 12 months. We see, comment in the media about applications being, with malware even being deployed out of the Play Store these days. So, what are the tools that Zebra can provide to help overcome those type of issues?
That's right, Glenn. So we have a few different ways to approach cybersecurity with our devices. So we have a Mobility DNA software suite, which is a suite of software that we have created based on our customer demands and customers' expectations to provide a simple user interface controlled through a UEM, a device management software, to lock down and secure different parts and different components of our devices. That might be something as simple as disabling the Bluetooth if that's not required, or restricting the access of the Wi-Fi to only specific access points or access point channels. So we have that software available today, and most of those are actually free and included with most of our Zebra devices. We also have our Life Guide. So our Life Guide is our operating system capability. Within that operating system, we will actually support the operating system longer than what Google releases. So as you mentioned, we are seeing releases become more rapid now with Android. So we're Android 11, 12, 13, we're now talking about 14, and this is all within a few years. So Zebra is keeping up with the times. We have now got Android 13 available on most of our devices. And what we do is we provide monthly updates. So that allows all of our customers and our partners to ensure that all our devices are up to date with the latest patches and updates. But we don't stop quite there. So we actually do continue to patch all of our older operating systems. Some customers do decide that they want to stay on an older version of Android 10 for argument's sake, because of some other constraint that they have within their network, within their system. So what we do is we still continue to patch those older operating systems as more of a best effort patching technique.
So Rick, you're absolutely right. I mean, we take all of those tools that Zebra provides for our customers. As a systems integrator, we've got to take the LifeGuard patches, we've got to deploy those via an EMM platform. Skywire is actually an Android Enterprise recommended partner, so we're part of the whole Google ecosystem. And what that means is you're taking devices, you're onboarding those devices securely into Google's framework using an EMM platform, and then deploying your applications and security updates on a regular basis. And the customers who do it well put in place a regular patching regime. You mentioned every 30 days. That's probably a bit onerous on most customers, so looking at every sort of 3 to 6 months is probably a better solution. But we're seeing those updates being able to be deployed much more simply now. So we're not having to do big outages when we're doing deployments and upgrades from one OS version to another. It's actually quite seamless. And it's becoming important because a lot of the security things that we've been talking about during this conversation are part of those updates as well. So if you're not doing updates, you're not keeping your devices and your wireless network and the rest of the network up to date. So putting in place a regime around cloud management for wireless, for EMM managed solutions for mobile devices is really important. And also then taking it to the last layer, which is the application layer and looking at mobile threat defense solutions to be able to detect malware in applications as well is really important. So I guess if we're looking at a security play holistically, we need to look at everything from the top down, being the infrastructure side, the mobility side, and the management and applications, and making sure we're doing detection across all parts of those elements.
Yeah, that's right. So it all really does start, like you mentioned, from an EMM solution, that zero touch. So Zebra has their Zebra Zero Touch, which enhances that zero touch experience and provides a lot more seamless, especially for Wi-Fi only devices, a lot more seamless integration from a box into the customer's hands. But the software side is something that everyone's really familiar with, but the hardware side, the physical device itself, that becomes more and more of a challenge. And we're seeing it time and time again, unfortunately. A lot of customers are losing a lot of devices. I'll go to a big bay of Zebra devices, I'll pull the shiny one out, and I like this device and it goes in my cupboard. I'm out doing whatever, I'm loading a truck and I accidentally leave the device on the pallet and the pallets and the Zebra device has gone. So we've seen that as a gap and an issue, and what we have done to try and combat that is our Zebra Intelligent Cabinet solution. So an intelligent cabinet is not just the woodwork behind it and the physical construction of a cabinet, but it's actually the intelligence behind it. So we have something called our Zebra Access Management System, ZAMS. And what ZAMS effectively does is it's an asset tagging and asset management system where you pull a Zebra device out and the device is actually in a locked state. So you can't use that device until you unlock it. We provide a few different ways to seamlessly unlock that through barcode or single sign-on or a PIN number, but it effectively allows you to sign into that device and take ownership of that device for your shift. We have a lot of smarts behind it as well to make sure that if you don't return it after your shift, we'll automatically we'll automatically mark the device as lost and be able to provide you a web UI so you can actually log into that and have a look at your fleet and your devices, how they're operating. Ultimately, all the user has to see is they pull the device out, log in, do their task, and then come back at the end of the day, put it back in the charger, and it will automatically be pulled back into the system.
The attractive things that I've seen with that solution, talking to customers, is A, you've got a clean space to actually store your devices as a starting point. But B, as soon as you make someone responsible for a device, all of a sudden they don't get damaged very often, they don't get lost very often, and with shared devices, rather than everyone having their favourite device they stick in the drawer at the end of the day, they have to put them back in the dock, otherwise they're sort of allocated for that device. So no, I've seen the Zebra Access Management System firsthand, and it's a very, very good solution to be able to track device usage and make sure that that you're using the devices to their optimum manner.
Yep, and you're right. And so with damaged devices, that's an important thing. We see all sorts of devices come through our repair center, run over by forklifts, and smashed with a screwdriver through the screen accidentally. Yeah. But look, it does come through. And what we're trying to do is trying to reduce the amount of device theft, device loss, sorry, I should say, as well as damaged device. Because a damaged device or a lost device is a less productive environment because the site is down a device, but the time and resourcing required to go and replace that device is quite onerous. So there's a lot of effort required in the back end to identify the device lost, try and find it, try and classify it as lost, get procurement to order a new one, go through the staging process, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of time and a lot of wasted resources.
So we've discussed a number of topics today. I think focusing on new wireless solutions with Wi-Fi 6 and also that user experience piece is really important. Looking at deployment considerations that customers need to think about as they're deploying a new wireless network or a new mobility solution. Talking about some security practices and the things that customers should consider and implement best practices around. What are your final thoughts that you'd like to leave from this discussion for customers to consider?
I think the partnership between Zebra and Aruba really brings strength for our partners to have a wider conversation when it comes to how do I support this facility or this hospital, and that they can take the UXI sensor, have it sitting in one spot, baselining and trending, as well as have it built into the agent or have the agent on the device doing all the roaming and coming in and out of the network, and you can by that build a trend and build a baseline so you know how to deploy it better. You can have a business conversation and say, look, here's the facts. This hasn't been working for the past 30 days because you have all the back in time trending data and everything like that. So I think we really bring the strength of a bigger conversation, and not just the device team and not just the AP team. They all have to work together now, and they can, work in harmony.
Yeah. And you're right, evidence is key. You can't make decisions if you don't have good baseline evidence.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and exactly to that point. So that partnership, and I think the main important thing from my perspective is that interoperability and continuity between our two solutions to make sure that it is one. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the end user just wants a solution to work. So we want to make sure that our solutions together work better together. So I think that's really important. I think also, we're talking heavily today about mobility computers, but there are other devices on the network that are utilizing this Wi-Fi. For example, our printers. A lot of our printers are now Wi-Fi 6E coming out very shortly. So a lot of these devices are now becoming more and more demanding on that Wi-Fi network. So having that data, having that visibility, having that availability is very important from all devices, because ultimately, at the end of the day, the end user gets a good result.
Bonnie, Ricardo, really appreciate your time this afternoon. I'm hoping that Skywire's customers can take a few nuggets of wisdom away from this conversation. And if there are things that you've heard during the conversation that you'd like to find out more about, please contact Skywire Australia and we'd be more than happy to talk through your requirements.